December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. For most of us, the story of Pearl Harbor begins here, with the thunder of explosions and the chaos of a surprise attack. But the real story, the one that truly matters, began months, weeks, and even hours before the first bomb fell. This isn't a story about a battle. It's a story about silence, about signals that were missed, warnings that went unheeded, and moments that could have changed history. It's the story of how a nation could be looking directly at a catastrophe and not see it coming. By late 1941, the winds of war were not a secret. America watched as the Axis powers consumed Europe and Asia. Relations with the Empire of Japan were stretched to the breaking point. After Japan's invasion of French Indochina, President Roosevelt took a drastic step, a full oil embargo. For a resource-starved Japan, it was a death sentence for their imperial ambitions. War, it seemed, was not a matter of if, but when. And in the nerve center of Washington, D.C., a small group of brilliant minds had a secret window into Japan's intentions. They called it magic. It was the code name for one of the greatest intelligence coups of the era, the cracking of Japan's most secret diplomatic cipher, Purple. Day after day, American cryptanalysts intercepted and decoded the most sensitive communications between Tokyo and its embassies. Officers like Colonel Rufus Bratton and Commander Alwyn Kramer were the gatekeepers of these secrets. They read the unfiltered thoughts of the Japanese government, feeling the rising tension with each new dispatch. They knew Japan was mobilizing for a massive military operation. The question was where? The Philippines? The Dutch East Indies? Malaya? All seemed likely targets. But one message, intercepted on September 24th, stood out. It came from Tokyo to its consulate in Honolulu. It was a request for something chillingly specific. The message, known to history as the bomb plot message, demanded the consulate divide Pearl Harbor into a precise grid and report the exact locations of the warships moored there. It was, in effect, a target map. Alarm bells should have been deafening. Yet, in the sea of intelligence, this critical signal was tragically underestimated. Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, under the warm Hawaiian sun, life went on. The commanders of this Pacific fortress, Admiral Husband E. Kimmel and Lieutenant General Walter C. Short, were capable, experienced officers. They were tasked with the defense of the islands and the fleet. They had received a war warning from Washington in late November, a message that stated in no uncertain terms, "This dispatch is to be considered a war warning." But the message was fatally ambiguous. It warned of Japanese action in the Philippines or Southeast Asia, mentioning Hawaii only as a postscript for reconnaissance and security. The greatest fear in the minds of Kimmel and Short wasn't a full-scale aerial assault, an idea most strategists considered borderline suicidal. Their fear was sabotage. They worried about local Japanese sympathizers disrupting the base. So they made a decision that, in hindsight, seems catastrophic. General Short ordered American aircraft to be bunched together in the center of the airfields. It made them easier to guard against saboteurs and created a perfect target for bombers. Admiral Kimmel increased sea patrols, but lacked the resources to conduct 360-degree reconnaissance far out into the Pacific. They were preparing for the wrong kind of war, blind to the true nature of the threat steaming silently towards them. They had been warned, but they hadn't been informed. The intelligence they received from Washington was filtered, incomplete. Crucial magic intercepts, like the bomb plot message, never reached them. The dots were appearing on the map, but no one had a clear enough view to connect them. Saturday, December 6th, the final day of peace. In Washington, the magic machines clatter to life, spitting out the most alarming intercept yet. It's a 14-part message from Tokyo to its Washington embassy. The first 13 parts lay out a final, contemptuous rejection of all American diplomatic proposals. It is a formal severing of ties. Colonel Bratton is so concerned, he tries to reach the Army Chief of Staff, but it's a Saturday, and the key figures are scattered across the city. Then, that evening, two more messages arrive. The first is the explosive 14th part, which officially ends negotiations. The second is even more ominous. It instructs the Japanese ambassador to destroy his code machines and deliver the 14-part reply to the American Secretary of State precisely at 1 p.m. the next day, Washington time. 1 o'clock. An intelligence officer looking at the message has a flash of insight. He overlays time zones. 1 p.m. in Washington, D.C. is just after dawn in Hawaii. It's a deadline, an H-hour. Panic begins to simmer. A warning message for all Pacific commands is drafted. But this is 1941. Atmospheric interference makes military radio unreliable. The message is handed to a commercial telegraph office, Western Union, to be sent. It will not arrive in Hawaii until after the attack has already begun. The sun rises on Sunday, December 7th. In the pre-dawn darkness, a new warning appears, this time right at the gates of the harbor itself. At 6:45 a.m. The destroyer USS Ward spots a small, unidentified submarine trying to sneak into Pearl Harbor. The Ward acts decisively. Her crew opens fire, striking the conning tower. She drops depth charges. The submarine is sunk. At 6:53 a.m., the captain sends a coded, urgent message to Naval Headquarters. We have attacked, fired upon, and dropped depth charges upon submarine operating in defensive sea area. An overt act of war. A confirmed enemy presence at the mouth of the harbor. The message is received, but it moves slowly up a sleepy, peacetime chain of command. An officer on duty decides to wait for verification before waking Admiral Kimmel. Another signal, the most direct yet, lost in bureaucratic delay. At that very moment, just a few miles away, on the northern tip of Oahu, two Army privates, Joseph Lockhart and George Elliott, are about to shut down their machine for the morning. They are manning a new, experimental technology, a mobile radar station at a place called Opana Point. The primitive screen before them suddenly floods with light. It is a blip larger than anything either man has ever seen. A massive formation of aircraft, 137 miles out and closing fast. At 7:02 a.m., they call the information center. The duty officer, a young lieutenant, takes the call. He knows a flight of American B-17 bombers is expected from the mainland. He makes a fatal assumption. Without looking at his own plotting board, he tells the privates, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. When the first bombs began to fall at 7:55 a.m., they were not just a surprise to the sailors on Battleship Row, but a profound shock to the men in Washington and Hawaii who had, in their hands, all the clues to the puzzle. The telegraph from Washington warning of the 1 p.m. deadline would be handed to General Short by a delivery boy in the middle of the attack. The report from the USS Ward would be laid on Admiral Kimmel's desk as Japanese torpedoes tore into his fleet. The story of Pearl Harbor's early warnings is a tragedy of missed connections. It serves as a permanent, harrowing lesson that the most dangerous threats are often the ones we refuse to see, even when they are right in front of our eyes.